Ridiculous soccer coaches who destroyed the career of a player. Every player's boss is a coach. Irrespective of the sport, coaches play a huge role in the game. They are the game changers, and a great coach can also shape many lives. But what happens if the coaches put a full stop to your budding career? In today's video, we are going to see about some ridiculous coaches who have destroyed the careers of their players. Coaches ruining their players' career is something that we rarely hear about. But this is what happened in the case of two of the most intriguing college football players, Vince Young and Matt Leinart. Talent is surely an integral ingredient in a sport, but the heights it can take you to are quite limited in a competitive field. You need the experienced hands of a coach to open greater doors of opportunities for you that make your career out of your talent. Without a good coach, your career might just remain a dream, or may even get you into trouble, which is what happened in the case of Vince and Matt. Despite being named Rookie of the Year in 2006 and going third overall to the Titans, Vince appeared to lose Jeff Fisher's favor real quickly. When Fisher benched Vince for an exhibition game in 2007 after he breached one of the team's rules, it marked the beginning of the rift in their relationship. It is thought that Vince slept at home the night before the game instead of the hotel without informing any of the coaches. Despite the fact that Fisher never publicly reported the offense, it is believed that this was the reason for the punishment. Though this appears to be petty and not much of an issue to the common man, it was a great deal for Fisher. This was probably because Fisher didn't want Tennessee to choose Young. He spent his time looking for chances to degrade Young quarterback. But we cannot be so sure that Vince was completely innocent in what led to the downfall of his career. This is because at times, his former OC has reported to the SI that Vince was occasionally indifferent and preoccupied in the meetings. This further irritated Fisher, but if you ask me, this is where Mr. Fisher went downhill and failed as a coach. As a coach, if any of the team members do something wrong or break some rules, it is the coach's duty to correct them and teach them the importance of discipline and professionalism. Instead of doing this, what did he do? He developed a dislike for Young and started a fight with him. Young revealed to her side that he had numerous private conversations with Fisher in which both men agreed to maintain their anonymity. But then, the next day, he stated that he would put Fisher's version of the story in the news. And by the time he saw the media, they would already be aware of the conversation with Fisher. Between their deteriorating relationship and a few convenient injuries, Fisher was able to replace Young with Kerry Collins. The former Texas star's professional path was irreversibly changed, and he played in the NFL for just 6 seasons before never realizing his full potential. On the other hand, Leinart, a 10th overall by Arizona, did not have such a toxic public relationship with his coach, Ken Whisenhunt, as it was in the case of Young and Fisher. But the tension between him and his coach were definitely a decisive factor in the player's NFL tenure. The issue was that because the Cardinals hired Whisenhunt the year after selecting Leinart, the new head coach had no actual connection to or interest in assisting him in growing. Leinart was basically seen as a relic of the Dennis Green era, and Whisenhunt had no problem addressing him as such. Although Leinart didn't exactly set the world on fire in his first season, over 2,500 yards and 11 starts should be sufficient for a rookie starting for a terrible club to gain at least some renown. But Whisenhunt felt otherwise, and midway through the team's season opener, he began using Kurt Warner as a backup quarterback, which is catastrophic for a rookie quarterback's development. When asked about what was going on between him and his coach, he replied to the media that Ken Whisenhunt had a fairly large reason as to why he could not be as successful as he wanted to be. When the Tennessee Titans, Whisenhunt's next coaching position, released him, Leinart even celebrated on Twitter. This once again proves how important it is for a player to end up with a good coach in spite of immense talent and potential. The pain that is caused in the situation where a coach fails their player is tremendous. I am pretty sure David Carr would say the same. Do you want to know what happened to David Carr? Then keep watching the video and do not forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel and enable the notifications to never miss out on such interesting content. Let us see what happened to David Carr. He was the former #1 pick overall, but his career was destroyed as his relationship with his coach, Dom Capers, broke. When he halted practice in an effort to target Carr's father, Roger, who had frequently attended, Capers strained his relationship with Carr a few years in. Now, I'm not of the opinion that there should have been a meeting between Rodgers and the coach or anything, but they probably didn't need to shun the father of the quarterback they intended to use as their franchise. The interesting thing is that this was not even the worst thing that Carr had to endure in Houston from the messed up system. Capers began his career as a defensive backs coach and moved on to become a defensive coordinator. And later on, he got to be head coach on various occasions. And since he was a defensive-minded coach, he completely overlooked the other parts of the game. He was not an expert in the offensive section. In this case, we can blame a bit on the offensive side coach, Chris Palmer. But as a head coach, Capers should have had a bit of knowledge on the other side of the game too. If he had, he could have identified the true potential of Carr and contributed to his development. Additionally, he would have been able to make a far better choice than to repeatedly start his young quarterback while being completely inexperienced on the offensive line. This often happens with mentors who are not open-minded and who are not willing to adjust to the talents of the young quarterbacks. Attention, Mr. Matt Nagy! Eyes are on you. Michel Trubisky was not a conventionally perfect quarterback, but he had a great deal in Chicago. Nagy was adamant and stubborn in his Kansas City days and would not adjust the playing strategy to include Trubisky's way and skill set. To worsen the situation, the offensive stars that Nagy did have were aligned and frustrated by him to the point that there were claims that Allen Robinson was so enraged by Nagy's game preparations that the two didn't talk for 5 whole months. Nagy put his young quarterbacks in a tough spot for sure. This reminds me of what happened with DeMarco Murray and Chip Kelly during the former All-Pro running back Sloan's season in Philadelphia. Philadelphia supporters were excited before that 2015 season as well. To their shock and dismay, however, Murray followed up his last year in Dallas with an absolute flop in the city of brotherly love. Despite having just been enticed away from their loathed rivals, Murray only had 8 starts, but he ran for 702 yards and 6 touchdowns on 193 carries. Which isn't exactly terrible, but it's not what you would expect after spending $42 million to sign the current NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Over the course of the season, the running back for the Eagles became so dissatisfied with his position that he met with team president Jeffrey Lurie to express his lack of confidence in Kelly as the team's head coach. What made the situation even stranger was the fact that Kelly was also the Eagles' general manager at the time and had guaranteed half of Murray's contract. And the deal of 2015 dirtied Murray's reputation in a lot of ways, and for being a top quarterback in the league, he was traded by Philadelphia to Tennessee for a 4th-round pick at a ridiculously low price for the player who had been the most sought-after free agent the year before. Prior to being dismissed by Tennessee after just 2 seasons of service, Murray made his NFL retirement announcement. The coaches of the defensive and the offensive sides messed up. The system might have rejoiced as the game lost another valuable player. Well, congrats, coaches! Additionally, we've seen coaches damage the careers of their players by overusing them to fill in for team gaps. This happened to another Cowboy running back, Ezekiel Elliott, who I believe his former coach, Jason Garrett, owes a huge obligation to for what he did to his career. Zeke was among the league's most productive running backs for the first 4 years of his career while playing for Jason Garrett, and 3 during which he carried the ball more than 300 times, taking the league lead in carries twice. Elliott just missed 300 yards once, in 2017, when he missed 6 games due to a suspension. With that, we come to the ending of today's video. These are just some examples of what can happen to the career of a talented player who fell into the hands of the wrong coach. Hence, talent is not the only key to a successful career in the sports world.